Hi, everyone. Thank you so very much. It's a pretty full room for being the last session of the last day, so thank you. I really appreciate that. A little bit of information on myself. So I'm actually fairly new to supply chain. I'm here about 1 year now. I joined Locus about a year ago, and I come from various MarTech and AdTech solutions focusing on AI and machine learning over the course of the past 10, 15 years. So what I have realized in supply chain is that AI and machine learning is really the next step, next logical step, in evolution for supply chain. So we're really excited to talk a little bit about that today. So why should retailers care about optimizing the last mile deliveries? I mean, of course, there's that consumer demand that is demanding this same day, next day. I'd like it in the next hour via drone to my window, so I don't have to get out of bed. Whatever that may be, right? The customers are definitely creating this demand, which is a great thing. Great thing for us as as retailers, distributors. The customer experience, I think, is what's going to drive most of the adoption, for these retailers. And as customers are creating these demands, they're also very vocal about the companies that they love to shop with and the companies that they'd like to do business with, whether it be a retailer, whether it be a home service company, whether it be somebody delivering on behalf of one of those. That customer experience is that pivotal moment in which you can earn a loyal customer and develop lifetime revenues. So what are some of the challenges that you will face when looking at the last mile? Well, 28% of the total transportation costs involved in last mile deliveries is 28%. The time definite delivery in which you're able to actually commit to a customer is very important, because you're spending a lot of money to get it there, and your customer is going to have that great experience and potentially repeat buy from you. There's a lot of retailers out there testing this e-com direct-to-consumer model, and what they're seeing is that it's really costly to get into just doing that, right? Let alone just the basic factors of owning a fleet, warehouse space, like all these types of things, but also the cost of not returning that customer. So one of the additional challenges would be to maximize the amount of customers that you can see on a given route. So maximizing your capacity per truck, maximizing your usage of your fleet, and possibly using contracted fleet or couriers in your overflow times. So in those overflow times, when you have peak sales per year, you have various activity promotions on your site that that might drive consumers to to pick up more and therefore deliver more of your product. This will push you into that arena of, do I have enough fleet to be able to cover? Can I contract more? Is that available to me on demand? Or can I possibly even explore crowdsourcing? Uberization of freight right now is really building steam, and I think is going to continue to be something that we need to consider. One thing that I'm not sure if you're familiar with or not, but we use a term called FADR. It's first attempted delivery rate. This is something that we're seeing come up more and more often. The reason being is because if you do not deliver on that first attempt, the cost of redelivery can be 3x or 4x the cost of your initial delivery set. So with over 1 billion redelivery attempts in just North America alone, and the primary reason being, hey, just nobody was home to be able to take that package or sign for that package, this can be a really big issue. So a recent study that we found shows that 69% of respondents are much less likely to shop with a certain retailer without at least a 2-day delivery option, and that's dramatically increasing to same day. Many retailers are also moving towards same day or even 2 to 3 hour time slots. 16% of respondents will abandon shopping with a retailer altogether if they receive an incorrect delivery just one time, and 14% will do so if they receive a late delivery just one time. So with UPS handling on average 15.8 million packages per day, FedEx handling 3.4 million packages per day, and 20% of those deliveries are not made during the first attempt, this is a really big issue. So having a first attempted delivery completed could be the minor difference between a 3PL or a carrier earning in the retail business. It could mean the customer experience increases exponentially. Of course, reducing costs involved in multiple deliveries, so saving on that budget. And then, of course, reducing the environmental degradation as well. So what is the next generation of last mile delivery? So if you take a look at the top and spin the wheel around, first you have to understand where you're delivering to. So what is that address? Is that address correct? Here in New York, there's a high density of tall buildings with multiple units. So how can we make sure that we're not just saying, okay, drop to this address and it's going to take 15 minutes of delivery time? No, like you have to understand, you have to either climb stairs or get an elevator or whatever that may be, right? So understanding your locations and knowing that you have the right address and knowing that you can account for any nuances at that address for multiple drops, paramount. This will help you in defining a real-time estimated time of arrival where your customers can expect their package or product or service at the time that you've chosen and the time that you've committed to them. Committed SLAs are extremely important. This slide might be a little congested, but I want to try and just walk you through it a little bit. So if you look over here, you have like all of your orders. They're sitting in your warehouse. You've now collected a lot of this information, right? So we can base some of the information about weather, time of day, delivery, traffic, all that stuff based upon historical data that we already have, right? But then there's these business constraints. It could be cost contracts. It could be distance. It could be the location. There's all these things that we have to consider when making that plan. Now we have Locus, as a decision-making engine or decision-making platform on your behalf to create the route plans of your supply chain. You can go up and say, well, I don't own my fleet today. I'm utilizing either full truckload vendors or partial truckload vendors. I'm outsourcing via crowdsource, 3PL, private contracts. We start to lose a little bit of visibility in terms of like last mile tracking, but they offer certain guarantees to you that your customer will have that great experience. And we're also starting to see now that you can be a little bit more suggestive that they follow your route plans. If you pass them a great route plan that can make that 3PL or carrier more efficient for them and for you, this could be something that is instrumental for your success. Alternatively, if you have your own captive fleet, this is where you can use Locus in its entirety to save your facility managers in the field or at your facilities, to direct what's happening in that field. Now, all of this, can be, tracked and managed. And as you can see here, we also offer predictive alerts so that you can understand when something is going to go awry. And again, promote the notification to your end user or your customer, having that, promoting that great experience. So one success story that I'll point out, this is a great client of ours. It's been a long time client of ours. We've learned a lot from this client relationship. It's an e-grocery company, and they're based out of India. And they are one of the few companies to gain profitability in that last mile. Profitability for e-grocery is really tough, especially when customers are demanding 1 hour time frames or 90-minute time frames or dedicated slot time windows that are 2 hours in length. These are some of the challenges that they came to us with. And they said, look, our most important KPI is that SLA adherence, because we know that we're going to spend a ton of money trying to acquire these customers and build adoption in e-grocery. E-grocery, I think, as a market right now is probably only like 3 to 5% adopted, by most purchasers, or maybe in New York it's a little bit higher. But there's definite promotion going on. A lot of companies are trying to figure this out right now. So Big Basket has. They've figured it out. And what they're doing is they're actually taking an engine, Locus, right? And they are understanding what time windows are available based upon the fleet and based upon the facilities and the product inventory that they have. So we understand, when the fleet is on the road, how long it takes them to get back to the facility to pick up that grocery. And this could be a pint of ice cream that requires a cooler, or it could be a full load of groceries, bananas, bread, and everything else. So we understand how long it takes to get to the facility to pick it up, how long it takes to pack it, how long it takes to get on that truck or car or motorcycle or whatever it may be, skateboard, roller skates, doesn't matter. And then once it goes, we want to make sure that it's going to hit the customer in the time that is efficient and agreed to by that customer. So we were able to help them with a 7% increase in average orders per route, 99.9% SLA adherence, 15% increase in average vehicle volume utilization. All right, so a little bit about us. I won't spend too much time here. I'm more than happy to talk with any of you folks after the show today, or in the near future, of course. But Locus has some pretty dramatic impacts, some pretty stellar stats. 75% reduction in dispatch planning time, 14% increase in SLA adherence, reduction in operational costs. The way that we do this is that we first help automate to be able to optimize. So we have a RESTful API built system. We can connect to your OMS, taking that order data in, TMSs as well. And then, of course, we can do our magic sauce in the background and put out these route plans and do the live tracking and then pass all that data, completion data, back to whatever system you choose. So both push and pull of data is something that we're really good at, having been built by ex-AWS engineers. Then, of course, the dispatcher solution is what we've been mostly talking about today, optimizing the seller and vendor pickups, so doing real, true, dynamic routing solutions. So some of the first mile and the middle mile, we figure that is like, fairly point to point. And it's easy. And we can track that, of course. But, we shine when there is a lot more complexity, like the e-grocery model, like the appliance model, like the furniture model. Those are things that we focus on that have real high complexity at real scale. So for instance, Big Basket has I think 100 million customers, and they have roughly 100,000 orders per day, all trying to process within hour time slots. Just really crazy stuff. So when you take a look at a demonstration from us, what you'll see is how we understand your plan, how we drive efficiency across your organization, whether it be productivity gains, whether it be planning time, whether it be SLA compliance. Last but not least is our motion track solution. So not only do we help you plan, but we help you track in real time, so that way you can do those alerts and make sure your facility managers and your customers have the best experience in making sure that product gets to where it needs to be. Our customers always have a lot of stuff to say. I'll leave on this note. Unilever is one of our customers that uses us both for the people management and planning and the product management and planning. So they're with us across 16 different regions now, and that's continuing to grow. We help optimize 6 months in advance for how they actually go about their customer outlet servicing, increasing their serviceability rates. And we also help them dispatch the product on the back end. Love to answer any questions for you.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
Question, how is your adoption with your last mile carriers with your product?
Like change management adoption?
Yeah, I mean uploading the driver app and things like that.
Yeah, it's really seamless. So of course, that was one of the big fears when we went into certain organizations that were really sizable. Is hey, who's gonna pick this up? Are these drivers actually gonna interact with the application? The app is built for both iOS and Android. It's simple one-click type stuff. They get a task list from their facility manager each day, and it's line by line what their tasks are, and each task is a drop. And so all they have to do is swipe to complete that. It pulls up whatever criteria is dictated by the order form, if you will. So say signature for delivery. Do we need to pick up cash on delivery? Do we need to take a picture of what we dropped? Those types of things. Makes it extremely simple for them. So once they touch it and feel it and use it, the adoption rates have skyrocketed. Sir?
Who do you sell to, and do they have to have their own fleet or drivers? And if they don't, what is the alternative?
Yeah, so some of the key verticals for us have been CPG and FMCG. So anybody that's looking to distribute people and then distribute product on the back end of that. We also work pretty heavily with retail e-commerce. So the Walmarts of the world, they have various business units, whether it be apparel, whether it be groceries, whether it be any of that type of stuff. And when they're increasing the amount of same day and next day activity, that's when they come to use us. We also work with home service companies, right? So home service could be anything from your installation of a washer dryer or delivery of furniture that requires some white glove service on the setup part of that. And then we work with the 3PLs as well, because they are while they're servicing these retailers, trying to get better at what they do as well. And they're not necessarily tech providers, they're doers. So we work with really across the gamut. We've also seen some really interesting use cases like in the finance industry. Hey, we want you to help plan where we move our money, armored car type solutions. Or we've seen, medical devices or, pharma or, blood services. Like these types of things are pretty hot right now as well. Can I answer your question?
Yeah. And if there aren't already drivers for that client company, what are the alternatives?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I'll go back a little ways to this slide here. If you take a peek, this is our Locus logo. So when we actually help make the plan, we can help make the plan for some of the crowdsource and the 3PLs. Typically, when you go into private contracts, we start to lose a little bit of visibility because they have their own systems or they are a client of us in that scenario. So we work with companies like DHL to where we're helping them do the assortment and shipment planning in some of their facilities. But you could use Locus, especially for captive fleet and also for crowdsourced 3PL. And in the event that it's private contracted, we'd probably work with them directly.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
I have a question. I was just texting my son while I was listening to your stuff. Anyway, he works for Tesla, and one of the things we were going back and forth on was the charging stations and congestion. And I was wondering if you would look to add something like that in the future as to when to get the truck charged so that they could actually keep it going when it's now the electric truck.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So we've had some actual dialogue with Tesla as well. They have a pretty interesting model in which they have their on-demand service fleet. They have the solar and the power stations in the home. They have their distribution and white glove service of their vehicles. I mean, there's a ton of stuff that they do. But one of the business constraints that you can actually factor in, would be specific stops that need to take place throughout a route, right? So right now we're planning for things like refueling at a gas station. That could be an instance to where if you're on an electric vehicle, you need to get to a charging station. We can understand where those charging stations are and route effectively and include that in the planning. Yeah, great question.
Any other questions?
Anybody else? Thank you for giving me so much time on the last session of the last day. I really appreciate it.